As cliche as it sounds, it's really true. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just need to start to eventually be perfect. Don't pick up your phone. When you wake up in the morning, don't pick up your phone. Because of my background as a bullied child and everything else, I realized that it's the underdogs that need hope, right? There's so many people out there, because what I saw in the mirror wasn't something I liked. Didn't like it. But it's the struggle that's part of that point where you eventually figure out what does, right? People are just really, really scared to do that work you don't want to do, but you do it to pay the bills. But while you're doing it, after you remembered who you are, authentically chase that goal. Make yourself accountable.
AJ.
Hey.
Wow. Welcome.
Thank you.
Talent Spotlight, Trauma to Success.
Appreciate it.
And, you know, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. I mean, we've just spent pretty much the last 45 minutes of the team setting up this, just talking about stuff anyway. So I know that you and I talk a lot.
Taking sites.
This is perfect.
Great location.
And I've known you for many, many years. You know, I think as we were just saying there, it's been a decade.
Yeah.
The first time
Has
we
been
met.
a fucking decade. Yeah.
Which is great.
Pardon my French. Scratch that.
No, we can swear. I think I've done that a few times already on this podcast.
on the show?
Yeah.
Okay. Apologies, audience.
You know, I really find you such an interesting character, and that's why I wanted you to come on this show.
Thank you.
Because you've got such depth in the things that you do with your business, your work, your personal life, you know, your awareness of other people, your storytelling, the ability to build your personal brand, to build networks, communities. And for me, that's like the number one priority that pretty much everybody should be looking to do in their career, not only just as a talent, but even if you're working for somebody. You know, how do you really build up your value? How do you show all these skill sets? And you and I have been been through a lot as well this last decade, and I thought it'd just be really interesting to get your viewpoints on all these things. And so, first of all, introduce yourself, and then we'll rock and roll from there.
I mean, where do I start? So I'm AJ Minai. I started my career in the belief of being able to use your own voice to inspire other people to understand that just about anyone can do the same, right? Because it's just a very strange world that we live in, right? We're increasingly becoming a world that is very focused on likes, ratings, subs. And it's very easy to lose yourself in that race, right? We used to talk about the rat race from a Wall Street perspective, corporate world. Well, we now see an entire onslaught of new types of jobs, whether it's because of AI, but it's also now because of influencers. They've created the influencer economy, where just about every young girl and boy wants to be on YouTube, or wants to be on Twitch, or wants to be on a gamer, who wants to be, et cetera, et cetera.
Or wants to set up a podcast.
Who wants to set up a podcast? Although I do think you're a little bit too old for that.
Yeah. Should have thought about this 10 years ago.
Should have thought about that when you were 18. No. So jokes aside, I think that's the most important thing for me as an introduction about myself, is that I've just thoroughly enjoyed brand storytelling. And for me, a brand isn't just corporate. It's not business. A brand is who you are. It's your DNA, right? Akin to a example that you have in everyday life that people follow. It's like Sir Richard Branson. A lot of people don't know Sir Richard Branson owns Virgin Group. And a lot of his success has to do with his business intuition at a very young age with Virgin. But what they remember and what they recall with him is more so his own personality.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so that's really, really interesting, because you think about it, people are attracted and attached to the emotion of that person, right? They're attached to that person's intangibles as opposed to their tangibles. It's very interesting, right? Because in a world of people trying to make it big online, you have very few that have messages worth listening to. If you really think about it, right? I mean, and I'm not saying this with any disrespect to the people that are doing the more surface level type of influencer work. It's okay, totally fine. You know, things like OnlyFans, things like, you know, you're going and doing things on YouTube for the sake of clickbait and content creation. That's great. You know, one of the biggest influencers, probably the biggest influencer today is Mr. Beast, right? And he has over, close to 1 billion followers now across different platforms. The vast majority of his videos are fun, right? Now, if you really think about the intellectual value of it, pretty long shot. Yeah, it's all about fun, right? Yeah, it's great, man. And so, you know, you can actually carve out your position in this world through just about anything. The key is authenticity. That's my introduction, right? My introduction is that I just was a very, very average, mediocre guy who was blessed with the opportunity to get up on stage, spoke at over 400 events in over 30 countries, done twice, been on Forbes, and, you know, set up my own venture cap for 10 years.
Yeah.
Had my ups and downs there, right? Won awards, but held true to the ethos of brand storytelling in everything I did, whether it was my investments, whether it was my speaking, and whether it was my friendships. You know, like even my friendships and my relationships spanned into that, is where if I'm friends with somebody, I want to leave them better than how I found them, right? That's also part of branding.
Yeah.
You know, if you brand yourself for the sake of selfishness, it'll take you pretty far. But if you brand yourself for something that's somewhat selfless, right, where you're serving others, your brand becomes a bridge for you to serve others. You become something entirely else. You become something else because people can ignore a brand. They can even ignore a man. They can remove the man, right? I mean, you've seen what happened to Charlie Kirk, right? But you can't ignore a symbol. You can't destroy a symbol. And that's why your work has to be resonate of a brand, because that's the first step toward you becoming a symbol. The very first step towards becoming a symbol for other people is branding, personal branding. That's just the first step, bro.
When did you first know that that was the way forward, though?
I
Because
have
a lot
no
of people
freaking
don't.
clue, bro.
I want to know, like, and a lot of people out there, they're thinking, yeah, I've heard this before. People talk about personal brand, and they're like, well, okay, so what do I do, and how do I know if I can achieve that or not? And I want to know, when did you first kind of say to yourself, okay, I need to build a personal brand, and that personal brand is going to be my steps forward in business, in relationships, in all this? Was there a moment where you just thought, actually, I got to sort that out?
I think the diplomatic answer that would sound really cool on this podcast is a time when I would actually know it, like a eureka moment. I was like euphoria, type of thing. But that never happened. The truth is that you typically have absolutely no idea what you're doing when you're building a brand, because authenticity is driving it. You start to understand what to do after you've taken the journey. You've stepped forward. Taking that first step forward is very important, because the first step forward is typically psychological. I'll explain why. Usually people that want to build a personal brand usually do it for all the wrong reasons in the beginning. It's usually from a place of self-involvement. And I'm saying this for myself too. When I first started out, I also got besotted with that type of stuff. But very soon I started to realize that I could actually use the gifts that were given to me by the universe to have an impact on people. And that happened very quickly, because the concept of starting up a personal brand came for other people to begin with. People around me, my friends, started saying, you know, you should actually really speak, bro. Like things like that. They would be like,
No, not just speak, but really speak.
like literally get up on stage, bro. Because some of the shit that you say is stuff that keeps me up at night, right? And I said, well, I hope for good reasons. You know, obviously you don't want to tell stuff to people that keeps them up for the wrong ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But
did you always have this kind of questioning ability?
Yeah,
Thought-provoking.
Because of the fact that I was bullied when I was a
solutions?
kid.
Was it to provide solutions, or what? Where
No,
did
I think
that?
it's just
Or was it just
to be heard.
nature? Yeah.
To be heard. It's actually a very sad story. I grew up pretty badly bullied, right? I bullied, you know, and people used to, I mean, obviously to see me now, I'm 6'2" and all this stuff and everything. People could never imagine a guy like me getting bullied. But actually, when I was a kid, I was scrawny, stammering, you know, the smallest kid in class. And I got picked on a lot, to the point where, you know, people piss on me in the football field. Yeah, not joking. Yeah. So
Yeah.
from trauma to success is
That's the point.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And for me, I call it from pain to purpose. Channeling your pain is very important in life, right? And channeling it the right way for you to use it to prove to everyone who never saw in you what others failed to see as well. When a lot of people around like different phases of your life, people have different phases of their life, and you will have people that are permanent pictures of that phase, and you'll have people that are just coming and going, and then you'll have people that are acquaintances in every phase of your life. Our life is like chapter by chapter, right? And if you look at each of our lives respectively from the point of a book, you'll start to see that in every chapter there were people that were pivotal characters, that were supporting cast, that were really, really very important for you, right? But what if you have a chapter in your life where you have no supporting characters? What if you have no one? What happens then? What happens then is no one else believes in you. So then something really interesting happens. You believe in yourself. You start to believe in yourself. It's almost ironic. When nobody else believes in you, you believe in yourself the most at that point, right? So when I was growing up bullied, I used to try to run away during lunch periods and break times because I was very, very afraid of what would happen to me during those times, right? I used to be beaten up pretty badly.
Right, yeah.
So I used to go and hide under the bleachers where nobody could see me. And I think there was just this drive of loneliness and exile that started to heighten my emotional intelligence because school is all about increasing your IQ, which you can't really do if you really think about it. I mean, I've always felt that school, in its truest form that we are in today, is actually a broken educational system.
Yeah.
My first TEDx talk was educate for life, not for work. Was about that, right? That, you have a class full of fishes, squirrels, bears, all sorts of different animals, but you're teaching them one methodology. You put a bear, in the middle of an urban environment, it will be completely out of its place.
Yeah.
But a fish, to climb a tree, it won't be able to climb. That doesn't mean it's not intelligent in its own form. The second you put a fish in the water, it'll outpace anything else, right? So the beauty of the whole situation here is that the loneliness and the pain forced me to start coming up with tactics to make myself more visible.
Yeah.
And I didn't have physical prowess at that time. So the only thing I could think of and I could actually build was my ability to talk. Which is even more weird because I was stammering back then, right? I had friends telling me back then, I was joking around and I was like, I think I was 19 when I saw a tape of Tony Robbins. I told my friends one day I'd be up on stage and I'd talk like that. And they laughed at me. They said, bro, 3 years ago you were stammering, bro. No way you can get up on stage, right? I still went and spoke in over 400 events in over 30 countries, bro. So for me, I don't say that from a point of boast. I say that from a point of if all the people like me, nobody, right, can do this, there's nothing stopping you, man. There's literally nothing stopping you. If you really think about it. What's stopping you? Most of the stuff that's going to stop you from doing anything in your life actually comes from within. It doesn't come from outside. Your circumstances can be changed simply by persistence and grit. It's the demons in your own head that are actually the ones that are knocking on your door, taking different forms every night and every day, convincing you that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Personal branding is a very, very good weapon against those demons because it teaches you the value of understanding the difference between self-promotion purely for the sake of selfishness and creating an example to inspire that is selfless.
I love that.
Two different, very different.
Yeah.
That's why you'll see a vast difference between those influencers online. I'm not going to go into the names because I don't want to discredit anybody. But there are just some influencers when you watch, you'll realize that, wow, what a pile of shit. Seriously, it's like, what an absolute waste of time. And there are just some that you'll hear a 10-second clip from, and you'll hear their voice, and it resonates at your core. You can't trick yourself. You can't trick other people. Sooner or later, they'll figure out your energy. People buy into your energy. They don't buy into just your words and your semantics and your flash and your cars and your villas. They also buy into what you very much stand for at your core, bro. So yeah, man.
Wow. No, that's incredible. And I think that it's, thanks for sharing your story there as well, because I'm sure there's many people out there who are going through something similar, have been through maybe even, nothing's worse than, you know, what we're going through ourselves individually. But, you know, I really appreciate you sharing that. And that is the point of what I want to share on this podcast, because we all have those demons. We all have those issues that we went through. And it's finding those little purposeful moments and those little nuggets, right, that just go like, okay, well, do you know what? If nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it for myself.
Yeah.
And then you find the resources to start putting those pieces of that puzzle together.
Yeah.
And one of the questions there I have for you is, because now you're experienced, now you understand about personal branding. Not only have you done it for yourself, but you've done it for big businesses, you've done it for individuals, you've done it over and over again. What's the first thing that you look at or you question when you're building a brand?
When I'm building a brand for someone else,
yeah,
as a paid
Yeah.
job, or is it more like I'm building my own personal brand?
I think when you would advise somebody,
When I would advise somebody, I think the first thing that you need to identify is that you truly need to identify whether or not the initial premise that someone comes to you with seeking your advice, whether or not their mission is even relevant enough to be a brand.
what do you mean by that?
First,
Explain a bit more.
you need to be, look, if somebody tells me that I want to be an icon for Roblox, I would then do a market validation to figure out how many people already exist in that brand portfolio, that particular landscape. If you've got influencers that are already very entrenched and somewhat household names in that particular niche of becoming an iconic influencer that you want to be, Mr. Client, in the world of Roblox, and you've already got an overwhelming level of competition, I would then say that might not be worth it. You could tweak that and look at something else that allows you easier penetration, lesser barriers of entry, and an easier journey towards just making yourself more visible as a thought leader in that particular. Or you could accept the fact that that particular mission, after having seen all these other people in that industry, isn't actually you. And that's actually very important.
Yeah.
When someone comes to me and talks about building a brand, if they say they want to build a brand that's not them, I typically say no. I typically say no to them. Like if they come and say, hey, I need somebody to teach me how to build my company's brand. I want you to do the branding of my company. I typically will say no, because that's not me. My area of brand storytelling, an expert in that particular area, was never about going out there and teaching and coaching people how to turn their particular organization into a storied brand, even though I have done it. I've done it for very big names. I've done it for names that, are household names today, insurance leaders, tech companies, so on and so forth. But I realized myself when I was doing those engagements that I actually enjoy much more when I work with an individual.
Yeah.
An individual that is doing credit to their own authenticity. So authenticity is the most important thing for me to check first.
So I think it's about them, they're looking at themselves and saying, what's their purpose? What's the reason for doing what they're doing?
Yeah.
And I look at that because obviously, I work in the talent industry, and that's the first thing that I say to people. Because influencers now, I want to be an influencer.
I know.
Okay. First of all, what do you want to influence?
Exactly.
What's your purpose?
Yeah.
What's the reason behind it?
You got to figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure that out. And if you can, great. Then what's the next step?
Correct.
Because you now have a purpose. Now it's, well, where are you going to put that purpose?
Yeah.
And then how do you then put that into place? But I think that a lot of people forget about that first thing, because what they see online right now is that, oh, this influencer is getting hundreds of thousands of followers and making money. I just want that.
Yeah. Without having to understand the mechanics of how to do it.
Yeah.
And not delivering a plan that will do justice to your own brand, which is ironic, because I feel that if you tell anyone, irrespective, tell me or you tell Carl Graham or you tell anybody else, that any expert out there, that I want to build my own personal brand, then what you would do is that you would be the most compelled to figure your own personal brand out. Nobody else is going to build your brand for you.
Yeah.
And think about it. If you really think about it, nobody else really gives a shit about you or your brand. Who cares? Nobody cares about your brand. Nobody's going to build your brand the way you would yourself. So the fact that you show up by having done some peripheral, surface level viewings of videos by Andrew Tate or a couple of these guys and say, these guys are making so much money, I want to be the next one, without actually having a head or tail of actually your own niche, how that ties into your own authenticity. How does it relate to your own story? Is it really who you are? Or is it something that you're putting up as a persona, which I personally believe that you can't really hold up and create as a facade very long. Sooner or later, people figure you out. Even if it's a stage presence on YouTube or a stage presence on TikTok, it doesn't matter, right? Sooner or later, people figure out, because life happens to you, happens to me, happens to everyone. You can stand next to as many Bentleys as you want. You can sit in, you can squat in as many friends' villas as you want. Sooner or later.
Oh, you saw those as well, did you?
Yes, I did.
You saw those,
Yes, I
those
did.
posts.
Did,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I wasn't the only one seeing.
I even made postcards. Nah. Yeah, but that's the irony of that. That's just, I find it very interesting when people say, I want to build a brand. They miss the most intrinsic piece of the DNA in that journey, which is, what's you?
Yeah.
What's you? Uncover you first before you want to wrap it into a brand. The wrapper is just the techniques and the things that you'll use to present yourself to the world.
Yeah.
But you're focusing on the wrapper. You're not focusing on opening the wrapper and seeing what's the candy inside. The candy inside is what makes you unique. And that's what's going to take you to where you want to be by looking at those influencers saying they're making so much money. Ironically, the only thing that will actually take you there is the fact that you are intrinsically unique enough to have created a niche and to speak a message that stands out in an ocean of people that are speaking every day on almost every platform on the planet now.
Yeah.
The age of influencer. You got to do something very different to stand out. There are a couple of techniques to do that. We'll talk about that later if we get some more time.
Yeah, of course. I want to. It's such an important part of society, not just as a talent model, actor, dancer. No, it's not that. This is now about society. This is about people in communities trying to find a way forward in this new era, right? Because normal jobs are no longer satisfactory for people. It's like, I don't want to go and work in an office. Why would I go and work in an office? I want to go and be a nomad. I want to go and live in Bali and have a villa and be with like 5 of my best mates and create $1 million business.
Wasn't that you a couple of years ago?
Well, I was looking into it. It didn't fulfill my purpose.
Yeah. Because when I saw you in those Speedos, I was like, oh, no, that's not right. That's not right.
I've got wider Speedos these days.
Yeah, if you say so, bro.
And look, I think that people are a little bit kind of bewildered about what's going on in the world. I think that they are so full of information that doesn't actually resonate with who they really are as a person, but they just think that they should do those things. Like they see it every day. It's just constant.
Yeah.
On the phone, on your laptop, wherever you are, the people around you, the people that are speaking, the communities that we're in. And in the talent industry especially, everybody's trying to find their way through this industry to make money, to try and become the next thing.
And to stand out.
Which is tough. We know it's tough, but it's only tough because you're trying to compete with the other people.
Right. As opposed to competing with yourself.
Rather than saying, well, actually, do you know what? I want to achieve these things because it's purposeful. I enjoy it. It's fun. I'm going to give value to these clients. And then eventually, I'm going to make money and I will grow and develop that career.
Right.
Rather than, how can I make money as quick as possible and then become a millionaire?
Right.
It's a completely different narrative, which is what we were saying before. So how can people kind of just get rid of all this noise?
It's going to sound really funny, but I think that you just need to stop doing everything once in a while during the day. I've realized that myself. I found that, the reason why it's a very interesting subject because social media has brought about so much good in the world, but it's also brought around a massive amount of identity crisis because people truly start to separate who they are online with who they are in real life.
Yeah.
And it becomes almost delusional after a certain period of time when they convince themselves based on those likes and those follows and those comments and those guys in their DMs and those girls in their DMs. It's a false high because in reality, when people get to know you, you're just as human as they are. You eat, sleep, breathe, and shit just like they do. You can't get away from that. I prick you with a toothpick, you bleed red. Prick me with a toothpick, I bleed red. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, we're all flesh and bones, and nobody's immortalized. Nobody is beyond anything else, beyond reproach. Everyone is essentially on their own journey, but in different segments and different chapters of their lives. It's very important to look at someone and understand that what they have is unique to them, and what you have is unique to you, and never to compare yourself to that. And that's why, in order for you to find and expedite your own chapters of your own life, it requires you to quiet your environment, right? So when you wake up in the morning, your knee-jerk reaction is to pick up your phone. Don't pick up your phone. When you wake up in the morning, don't pick up your phone. Don't go on to social media. Don't go check your emails. Don't. Deliberately stay in that state of meditativeness when you just wake up. You'll know what I mean. Everybody has that. When they just wake up, they have that state of grogginess.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not grogginess. It's actually a state of your brain waves altering, right? And it's scientific. You can go read this up online, guys. You can go online, right? As soon as you wake up, your body is switching into almost a different mode. Your body's switching because you're standing up and walking around for the whole day. You're engaging with people. You become a social animal. But when you're sleeping, when you go into sleep, when you come out of it, there's this moment in time where you can have a good, uninterrupted 10 to 15, 20 minutes, where if you don't pick up an electronic device and you just, whatever you call it, doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, whether you're a Christian or a Hindu or an atheist or a Muslim, it doesn't really matter what you are. What matters is you take a moment to step into a space of peace.
Yeah.
You take it as a moment for you. A lot of people want to talk about manifestation. Manifestation doesn't really work until you become what you want to attract. And manifestation doesn't work until you understand that the things you're trying to manifest, what are the reasons why you want them? Right? Because everything that you want comes from a state of lack. Comes from a state of lack, right? So when you come from a state of lack, you're basically sending out an energy to the environment that you need things, right? But you don't. You actually don't need them. What you actually want to say to the universe is that you'd like to have those things. They're ideal situations. They're wants. They're not needs. There's a difference between wants and needs.
Absolutely.
And once you understand that, you start to realize that you can attract those things effortlessly because you're spending a lot more time leveling up in your day. And you can only level up and only truly compete with yourself when you've got a quiet, solid foundation. The quiet, solid foundation comes from you intentionally reducing your exposure to noise, right? How are you going to do that if you're constantly on your FYP on Instagram or your TikTok or on LinkedIn or on Facebook? Look, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Some people's entire lives depend on it. I'm sure that you would have somebody on this podcast that will tell you that AJ is full of shit because I have built millions out of the online world. That's true. But the key word is you built millions. At what cost?
Yeah.
Whether or not you
Sacrifice.
believe it, whatever you expect. Now for you, because you're very young and you've earned millions between 25 to 30, you clearly don't see the effects just yet. But you're not looking at the things at a deeper level. The girl that just broke up with you, why did she break up with you? The relationship issues you're having with your own parents, why did they happen in the first place? The best friends you had from college not being in touch as often as they used to be, why is it happening? The thing is, people look at the tangible things in their life to see whether or not they got affected by something, right? They think karma affects only the tangible things. It doesn't. Karma affects the intangible things too. You need to understand that if you lose a relationship with someone that was meant to be part of a greater destiny, you lost it because of greed, you lost it because of something else, an obsession over yourself. That is actually a loss as well, but you don't see it, you don't feel it immediately. You feel it years later, right? We're always living in a moment in time where our entire destinies can be changed. Every moment changes our destiny. Every word that I choose to speak, every moment I spend with someone is nurturing the future that I'm choosing to nurture, right? So it's very important. I've always felt it's very important for people to understand that the highest frequency in terms of all frequencies, sadness, anger, willpower, all of it, the highest frequency that resonates is the frequency of authenticity. Just be yourself. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to be yourself because most people don't know what that is their entire life.
Yeah.
Most people live their entire lives asleep, bro. They don't know. They're not even aware they're existing. They're not living, right? There's a very big difference between existing and living. You live when you channel that pain into purpose. You're going to have pain no matter what happens. You can't get out of it. What are you going to do? Name me one person that hasn't had pain in their life. There is no such person that you and I know that has not faced pain. It doesn't matter what that pain is. Could be health. Could be loss of someone's life. Could be betrayal. Like me, when I was running my venture cap.
Yeah.
You know,
Can you go into that
Somebody-
a bit? Because
yeah, somebody who's very
that's
close to
pretty
me
intense,
for
mate. I mean,
10
that
years.
that was an intense moment for you, and I found out about it, and I'm like, wow, that's going to take a toll, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
one of the things that I admire about you is the ability to step back, find your peace. That's what you did. You found some peace, you found some space, and then you rebuilt.
some would
And
say I
that's-
found it.
And that's, I think, a really good lesson for people out there to understand that, yeah, it doesn't matter how far or how bad it gets, take a step back,
Yeah.
find some peace for yourself and start to rebuild, because we can rebuild and recreate. We can become different people, like you said, with different chapters in our life. And you went through that pretty intense situation. Do you
Yeah.
mind sharing a little bit of that? 'Cause
Yeah, so I ran
let me just shed some light on this a little bit. When I met you, successful businessman, talk like you do, powerful, you know, great salesperson.
50 kilos heavier.
You were 50 kilos heavier. And, you know, when I met, I'm like, wow, like that guy is something, like, fair play. Like, I really, really admire his approach, his ability to speak, his honesty. You know, I loved your honesty with everything. And, you know, then I met your business partners, and then we obviously, you know, have known each other then for a decade.
Yeah, you knew as soon as you met him that you didn't like him, though.
Well, yes. But anyway, what can I say to you? It was like your brother, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
But look, you went through something that was pretty, and most people would just crumble and never get back up. And you got back up. And I want you to share a little bit of that story, because it's incredible.
Yeah.
And how you're now rebuilding, and actually is it getting even better than what
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I crafted a company called Vision 77 with the goal of investing in 77 impactful ventures around the world. And I had a partner that I was very close to, who was like a brother to me. His family was my family, and my family was his. Towards the last end of that decade, the last 3 years out of that 10, he started connecting with people that probably took him down a different path in life, right? Not without going into too much of detail, for the sake of also respecting his identity, is also the fact that, you know, he didn't just betray me, betrayed himself, because he spent that entire good part of the decade being part of the journey that I had crafted for us to help people. The very ethos of Vision 77 as a venture accelerator, business angel, with our partners in the US and partners all over the world, was that we would serve the underdog. And that mission really, actually, to be very frank, came from me. Because of my background as a bullied child and everything else, I realized that it's the underdogs that need hope, right? There's so many people out there, whether it's a founder or it's a business owner or it's just it's a kid growing up, right, that don't have enough hope in their lives, right? They see things around them and they start to trick themselves to believe that this is it, but it's not, right? If more people can personify hope, and even in the realm of investments, the world would be a better place, right? Investments should be a vehicle to impact for good, right? Unfortunately, we're riddled with an industry of sharks, people
Greed.
who want to make money at all cost. And the only thing that matters to them is your balance sheet, which is very sad because they have no empathy. And when you talk to these people, they have no empathy. You can see it in their eyes. You literally can see it in their eyes when you're talking to them about things that you and I discuss, Carl, sometimes that are deeper things of life. They either laugh or they completely look dumbfounded. And after a while, you start to realize it's not just my ex-partner, it's even people that are surrounding me till today. You'll realize that they're not able to actually understand anything beyond black and white, and they think of that as a strength. It's so strange. They can't see anything intangible in their life, and they make that as something to be proud of. But I feel sad for them because they are missing out on so many awesome things in a moment. Forget about in life. In a moment, they're missing out. They're missing out on so much because all they can see is binary. Their entire life is just about making a path for themselves. You know, and it's a very, very, to me, it's certainly not a way I want to live. I wouldn't want to do that, right? And my partner, what he did was for the sake of greed. He stole money from the clients. He stole money from the company. He sold and pawned off stuff in our investments. I mean, bloody hell, he made up a story about how our office was ransacked by so-called gangsters, but it wasn't. It was just him and a couple of contractors of his own friends, right? I mean, that's the thing. When you start lying, you continue to lie until a point where you forget your own lies, right? And sooner or later, you think you're being very smart, but what actually is happening is everyone's starting to figure you out. The person whose fault it really was that this happened was my own. It wasn't his fault. It was my fault. He betrayed himself, but I also allowed him to betray me. I should have had the ability to cull that relationship much earlier on. Because I saw the writing on the wall 3-4 years earlier. I mean, 4 years earlier, Carl, I mean, we used to bump into each other. I was already starting to tell you things about his behavior, even with your own engagements that you and I were doing together. And that was my ability to act that brought me to that situation. It's not his fault, it's mine. I should have had the will to act. And the will to act is the key point that I want to make in this segment of the conversation. The will to act is so important. You can be the most altruistic, amazing, awesome, the stuff we're talking about, person. But if you don't have the will to act and implement what you're saying, you don't create that intangible methodology that I'm speaking about with you. You don't turn it into a tangible thing that the masses can understand. Then what you've done is you've done a disservice to yourself and you've done a disservice to the world because you were given these gifts for a reason. You spent your entire life squandering them on non-purpose, right?
Yeah.
You could have done so much more. And every time someone is at a point in their life where they look back, 9 out of 10 times their regrets are around something I should have done. It's always the same thing. I should have done that. Speak to my dad, speak to everyone I know, anybody, friends, they look back. And I always tell them, why do you look back and spend time in the past? Because it truly has passed now, right? And even this cookie cutter wisdom that you see on social media about the present, right? Why do you go so far? Stop talking about the present. Just think about this very moment, man. Just figure out how you can be concerted in this very moment. The words that you use in this very minute. The way that you make someone else feel in this very minute. If you live yourself that way, if you actually hold yourself accountable that way, you wouldn't really need to plan out 5 years. You wouldn't have time to. You'd be too busy holding yourself up to a whole higher standard every minute, right? And that's the beauty of life. I think that's really amazing, our lives, right? Our lives are so wonderfully up and down, like roller coasters, emotional roller coasters, that we start to understand that a lot of the stuff is really not in our control.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that we worry about isn't in our control, bro. So that journey in that BC world for me was a harsh awakening, but it was also a mirror. It was a time for me to look at myself, and that was why I picked myself up. Because what I saw in the mirror wasn't something I liked. Didn't like it. So I changed. Right? And I think that's the key. the will to act also entails the ability to adapt, the ability to change yourself.
Yeah.
Right? If you're competing with yourself, then the only one who will change in any equation would always be yourself. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that was the journey.
Thanks for sharing, man. Appreciate it. I know it's tough.
No, it's all good, man.
But now you're on to bigger, better things, which is
Much bigger and better
amazing.
things.
And I'm
It's
so
amazing.
proud of you, and it's so exciting. It's really amazing stuff. And I know that a lot of people are going to be benefiting from who you really are.
Yeah,
And what you're
appreciate
going to be
it.
achieving.
Thanks,
so
man.
very exciting.
Hoping that
stuff
journey
ahead.
entails with you as well. huh?
Absolutely. I'm already there, mate.
Yeah, you are.
I'm right next to you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Now, look, I want to take a little bit of part of what we just talked about there was like the emotional aspect, right? And people get so into this whirlwind of the emotions sometimes that they're
Right.
not able to then put some, substance to it or steps to it, or well, what do I do tomorrow then now? Because I'm invested in this. I believe in it. I love it. It's my purpose. What do I do? How do I actually take a person that I am as an emotional person, available to be with empathy for other people, to spend time with other people, to give that energy? How do I take those things into them building practical elements that will create
A brand, you mean?
no, in terms of just creating a future? Like how does a person do that? How do we separate but then bring together the emotional side and the practical side?
Right.
How do we bridge that world?
Right.
Because we can get so caught up in the emotional parts.
Right.
Do you have any?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Hints,
it's a good question, man. It's a loaded question, though. I think for me, it's always been very fascinating. I've met many people in my life that have always said that your personal is separate from your business is separate from your personal. And I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah.
I think the ethos of who you are as a person slips in and seeps into your business with or without you knowing. And I think it's just it's very odd to me that people would tell themselves these lies. That no, business is business, personal is personal, bro. And I'm like, yeah, but personally, you're a thief. Personally, you're an asshole, right? And you're saying in business, you hold yourself up to be a reflection that's opposite of these things. The biggest scam in the century, bro.
Yeah.
It's a huge scam.
So true.
If you're a horrible person at home, you're likely a very fake, pretentious person, but you're still horrible outside. Now, it's a different thing that you've done a good job covering it up,
Yeah.
but that just makes it worse because it means that you're a fake asshole, right? That's what it means, right? It doesn't. It's not something that you should hold yourself to. I mean, I say this to people that are around me right now. I know a couple of people that are very influential, very powerful, and I say this with no fear because I can tell them to their face, right, that they're not tricking anyone, bro. They're not fooling anyone. Sooner or later, people will figure out who you are. And you have to hope and pray that the person who figures it out doesn't have bigger balls than you do. Because if they do, you have a much bigger problem. They won't be scared to tell the world who you really are, right? Now, the question is, for me, I've always chosen peace over war because I've understood that every time you go to war, there's tons of collateral damage. There are people that are hurt. There are relationships that are lost. You have to choose very wisely as to which battles you pick and which fight you want to fight and which ones you just find a way to settle your differences and move on. 9 out of 10 times, the best thing to do is just settle down and move on. So for the first step of that advice about what you said, practical purposes, first try to find a way to move on from all the things, the negativity that's created self-limiting beliefs in your life. The negativity that happens to us becomes us. I've realized that, if you let it. The key is if you let it.
Does that mean letting go of actual relationships?
No, not really, because letting go is
about?
crap, man. Everybody says that. You just let it go. But like, how? A lot of people say, let it go. How? I mean, it took me years to get over what happened. You know, with Vision 77, it took me a good 2 years for me to accept fully my own fault for not recognizing the person that he was, not just for the last 3 years, but who he always was. But I chose to turn a blind eye because of my so-called brotherhood. And so brotherhood should come with accountability, right? It should come from accountability. And so the first thing you need to do to be able to bridge that is to let go of all this bullshit, that personal, business. Let go of all these anecdotes and this crap that you see on social media and all this stuff. Let go of all of it and just spend some time with yourself. Whether you want to meditate, whether you want to pray, whether you want to go out to nature, whether you want to take a long trip and a holiday, spend more time with yourself. That's the first key. The first thing you do is spend more time with yourself. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you're going to start to understand yourself. You're going to start to understand who you are. You're only going to get those answers in the quiet. You're not going to get the answer when you're bombarding yourself with Spotify and you're in the club till 5 a.m, right? You're never going to find yourself in those situations. Sooner or later, you're going to feel like you're walking on a path where you're getting closer, you consume substances, you do all that stuff, thinking that you're achieving something, but you're not. The only thing you're achieving is wasting your time.
Yeah.
Wasting your time is probably the biggest offense you can do to yourself because it's the only thing you can never get back. If you really think about it, I lost so much of money in those, and what happened. Mm-hmm. I'll get it back. I can get it back.
Yeah.
I can earn that again, right? What I can't get from that is those 10 years. I can't get back, right? I can't. No matter what I do, I can't go back. I can't go back to the same age I used to be. And do I really want to be? Do I really want to be? Because I look at myself during those good years and I start to see things that I don't like. I don't like a lot of things that I did back then,
Were you caught up in the whirlwind as well?
I was caught up in the whirlwind and I was caught up in forgetting how to use my voice to help others. The beginning of those years were amazing. The first 5 years of those 10 years were amazing because I stayed true to who I was. When I was in Common Ground in the private office and everything, those days were really amazing. You know why? Because people saw me and I saw people. I saw them and they saw me. They saw the real AJ.
You spent time.
I spent time with people. I did the work. I spent not just time with them, I poured energy into them as well. And it just multiplied. It multiplied and it just skyrocketed and catapulted me onto the stage. The next 5 years were categorized around the time of COVID, where it became very self-involved and intrinsic because my partner became more valuable in the ecosystem that didn't depend on a speaker anymore. So the first 5 years of Vision were very dependent on the CEO using his voice to activate and to impact people. And that turned into business opportunity, right? That's when LinkedIn came in. I built up I had close to almost 100,000 followers at one point, right? I stopped being content creation, it's dropped to 30 now. But my point is that as long as I stayed true to AJ and I stayed true to that path, I just kept going. I kept going, kept on progressing. And progression doesn't always have to be up. It can just be progressing for the sake of impact where you are, right?
Taking
but
those
the
steps.
next 5 years, that's where the downfall began. Because that's when COVID happened. And that's when the shift from speaking in events and all that stuff, where my core DNA, my nature was subdued, suppressed. And then we went into a more tech phase, right? That's where this particular gentleman took over and became, because he's much more technical than I was, right? So the characterization of the very organization changed. It became a much more technical organization that was doing those projects. And the projects, if you really think about it, were the reason why he could do what he did. If not for the projects where he had the money for the clients, he couldn't have done all that. So it was definitely orchestrated. He definitely did it on purpose, right? COVID happened at an opportune time for him. But the lesson here is that once I abandoned and forgot who I was, my life became worse. So the key actually, really, to your question is simply to remember who you are. And everything else will follow. And if you ask anybody else what happens after that, and if they have an answer for you, don't listen to them. Because things falling into place for your life are going to be very different for things falling in place in my life. There is no cookie cutter advice that I can give you that will be an oracle to tell you what would happen once you remember who you are. I wouldn't know. And that's how it should be. That's the wonder of this life, that once you remember who you are, the universe would converge for you to embrace that. And opportunities come along. Those opportunities and the way you do things and what means something positive to you and what means something not so positive for you, how would I know? I wouldn't know that. I couldn't tell you that. Because that's something very deep and intimate to you. Yeah. That's your soul, right? That's my soul, right? But what I can tell you is the journey will begin when you remember who you are. That's what
Wow. Love it. Look, you've had a lot of experience in advertising, in marketing, and one of the things that I want to put across to people is that how things are changing with advertising, with marketing, consumer attention, how people watch things is changing, and the talent industry, and you're also part of that talent industry as a speaker. Things changed. You weren't supposed to be on stage. Then it went to online, and then you can't do what you really want to do. And people really get affected by that.
Yeah.
The film stopped, events stopped, talents were affected, physically, mentally, financially. And the way that the future of the industry is really on quite a different trajectory right now. It's really changing.
How so? What do you mean?
In terms of...
Sorry, I'm interviewing you now.
No, absolutely. It's in terms of how people are consuming, which is then affecting the creative element. So what people are creating is basically now just mirroring what people are consuming, but it's not necessarily what they want or what they should be having. And then that is then affecting what the talents are creating. So if you're an actor, for example, there's now a lot of these vertical dramas coming out, on the phone, vertical drama, and everybody's just getting so, connected.
In the hopes that they'll get their ticket to fame.
Then actors are now having to take those jobs, even though it's not necessarily what they want to be doing in terms of movie acting.
Right.
It's now they're having to do this vertical drama acting. Same for models, right? They're having to, there's less potential big campaigns like they were.
Yeah.
So now there's more projects.
Micro and macro influencing.
Micro influencing, but even on the smaller jobs, in terms of the smaller businesses that don't necessarily have the big brands. So
SMEs, right?
You now have to say yes to a project that you like.
Ordinarily, you wouldn't want to.
Normally, but you have to now because those other projects are not there. Yeah. And there's more competition.
Right.
There's more people who can become models, talent, actors, dancers, singers, MCs, voiceovers, speakers,
saturation,
everything, right? So there's saturation. There's more SMEs that are now producing businesses and brands that people should be then a talent for. So it's just on a massive change. And I'd like to get your viewpoint really on how you believe that somebody who is a talent in that world can build their personal brand,
right,
and actually make a difference in that industry. How do they actually sit there and say, well, I love to act. How can I now build something that will be value to the industry and then help me on this career path of acting for the rest of my life? And this is just one example. Even if the singers, singers have so much trouble now because everybody can be a TikTok singer.
Right.
Well, how do you make money from that?
Dancers even worse.
Dancers are even worse.
Everybody's a dancer on TikTok now.
So how can they build that brand? How, and maybe it's not even something we can answer today. But it's just
I think I would
get some
disrupt the
information.
TikTok world if I started dancing on TikTok. Yeah. I think so, huh? If I started dancing on TikTok, pretty good, huh? You'd follow me.
I think I would follow you dancing on TikTok, so. Mate. I think let's do that. Let's build your new personal brand.
I think I'd break the platform. It would be so bad that they'd probably create a new category of the opposite of ratings, the opposite of likes. They'd be like, we've started this new dislike button for AJ. Hate, right? Hey, create a new category and then disrupt the norm. Yeah. And have a host of influencers coming out purely on being the opposite of really good.
The opposite of good.
That's AJ, right? Yeah. Coming to your question, I think there are three parts, these components that I just want to talk about very briefly. If you talk to, I'll give you a very good example. If you talk to a young man today, roughly between their late teens up to their adolescent ages, right? The vast majority of them would have idols like Andrew Tate. They follow people like Tate, right? And then you'd see mannerisms in these young men trying to replicate and emulate Tate, right? Down to getting tattoos or shaving their head or wearing sunglasses or talking like him or having extremely opinionated views about things, right? Personally, I feel that he talks a lot of sense, but my opinion is also the fact that he is who he is. You have to recognize that. Recognize that Richard Branson is Richard Branson. Recognize that Andrew Tate is Andrew Tate. Recognize that everybody else that you follow online. Learn from everyone. Follow no one. It's very important. Have this mindset before the actual practical application of it. First, have this mindset. I'll tell you why. Because you'll never be able to create a unique version of the authentic self. You'll never be able to spend time building that authenticity online because it's just not magical where you wake up one day on a couch and start talking to the screen. There are certain techniques you have to put together. Like you doing this podcast, there's a lot of work that goes into this podcast, right? It's not that you just wake up in the morning and put on a shirt and come and sit here. No, there's a lot of work, right? Yeah. But you're doing it to drive your authenticity of who you are, who Carl Graham is. Even your personal brand of who you are, what you're speaking about is actually Carl Graham. What you feel and what you're sharing on this podcast and every other guest that you have, it's all personified by Carl Graham as a person. So you're being authentic to what you're doing, you see? You're not creating and manufacturing something else. So the first categorization, the first filtration for anybody would be that do you want to be in the 99% or the 1%? Because the 1% are the ones that are truly authentic to who they are online and offline. Criteria, qualification number one. Because the second you step into the 99%, you spend the majority of your time creating a persona. And I don't even want to talk about those guys because quite frankly, all you're doing is furthering the gap between who you are as a person in real life versus who you truly want to be. You're going far away from that goal and you're becoming something else entirely. Right? Which is fine if you want to do it for clickbait, you want to do it for views, doing it for money. But that I rest my case. Yeah. Your pivot and your drive is money. That's all it is, right? For me, I'd rather do a profitable purpose. There's nothing wrong doing good and doing it. If you're good at something, don't do it for free. Why don't you combine what you're good at, what you're authentic about, and turn it into a profitable purpose? Make money out of it too. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with driving an authentic cause to derive an income as well, to build a presence, to have followers. Nothing wrong with that. That's the right way of becoming, in my opinion, the better way of becoming an influencer.
Yeah, so I think that putting that into an example with the actors, it's like, okay, you enjoy acting, okay. Get some monologues, practice, rehearse, share them online, show people what you can do, show them the value, get people interested in you as an actor.
Right.
Get people being authentic in being what you believe in and what you really love, and start connecting.
Yeah.
Start networking with directors, producers, other actors. Get other actors involved, even if those things at the beginning are not necessarily making you loads of money, but it's just building the community, building the network, which is part of our personal brand as well. Right?
That's a good point because what happens, the mass majority of experts will tell you and start asking you questions at the very beginning of your journey is who do you want to be like? Ask questions like that.
Yeah.
This is completely entirely wrong pivot.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're actually you're literally propagating this mentality that, oh, you can take a bit of this guy and a bit of that guy. So you're building an entire persona from a DNA level foundationally as an expert to your client to say that you can copy people to become famous.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't make sense to me, right? How will you ever do it? Because you can't sustain that 24/7. Sooner or later, people will figure you out, right? So when that happens, the gravy train happens. It ends, right? Because no matter what happens, sooner or later, you can't sustain that because people will get to know you. Once you become really famous, people will get to know you in person too.
Yeah.
Right? Sooner or later, someone will figure out who you really are, right? So, but whereas on the other side, it's beautiful because on the other side, you have the ability to just be unapologetically yourself and then have a host of people not like you for it. That becomes publicity.
Yeah.
And a host of people that like you for it and that becomes publicity, and that furthers your mission to inspire people with a voice that was already 100% authentic to begin with in the first place. So the first step is that pillar that we've been talking about throughout this conversation. Just remember who you are and be true to it, and actually talk about things that you give a shit about. Number one. Number two, delay gratification.
Yeah.
Delaying gratification is very important. And the only way you can delay gratification is when you've gotten a baseline available. It's very important that before you decide to become a YouTuber, before you decide to become a gamer, always have your traditional background set up in a way where you've learned skills that people will pay you for. Have those skills no matter what, because you could be an actor looking for your big break for the next 5 years. What are you going to do? You're going to pay bills. How are you going to pay bills? Right? If you have a set of skills, for example, you're a copywriter, you're a great videographer, you are a great speaker, an MC, right? It could be anything. It could be, you have a set of skills that I don't even know about. My point is, monetize those skills and have them in the first place for you to have a day job that allows you to generate income while you chase your destiny.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying don't chase it. But people are telling you that life is not a movie. They're also telling you that. Be realistic about what you're doing, right? I have people who have told me that I'm destined to be a dancer, but they have 2 left feet. I was the only friend who told them, buddy, you've got 2 left feet. You're not destined to be a dancer. You're destined to sit down, because when you dance, people die. And I was the only one who told him that. I had the ability to tell him.
He's now a very successful
and he's
dancer.
extremely successful. He's extremely successful because he wanted to leave his medical practice and his medicine background to become a dancer. And I said, listen, bro, there's crazy and then there's batshit crazy. You are somewhere in between there, bro. And what you need to do is understand is that I've seen you dance. We've gone out. I've seen you even perform. He's been joining a dance troupe, right? And, God bless him. He's an amazing guy, great heart. But he really can't dance to save his life. But he feels like he's got so much potential, right? But he doesn't. He doesn't have the potential. And it takes people that are real friends around you to tell you that. Now, if I was going around at that time, I told you about when I watched Tony Robbins' tape and I said, I'm going to be on stage one day. And then I had a friend around me saying, bro, listen, you sound like a retard. Don't ever try to speak. If I listened to him, maybe I wouldn't have ever been able to accomplish what I did, right? But here's the thing. There were also an equal number of people along that way as a validation of a litmus test, also telling me that I should do it. It's a good balance.
Yeah.
This gentleman has never had anybody telling him that you should dance. So the reality is, right? Yeah. Understand and take cues and delay your gratification while you build up skills that are your everyday bankability. You need to pay your bills. Yeah. Now, while you're paying your bills with skills that are things that maybe are very mundane for you, that you don't want to do, but you do it to pay the bills. But while you're doing it, after you remembered who you are, authentically chase that goal. Make yourself accountable to chase that goal. Develop and level up those skills that are relevant for you to attain that goal. You want to be the best actor in the world? Reverse engineer that. What are the things? Literally reverse engineer it on paper. Write it down. Okay, what do I have to do? What are the things that I'd have to create into a checkbox list of things that would be all the ingredients to become the best actor on the planet? Okay, need to know directors. What am I doing on this? Need to level up physically. Need to be in shape. All right, what am I doing to level up my physical, right? It's literally down to a rudimentary accountability of your everyday. And gratification delayed only comes from one source: discipline. Remember who you are, authenticity.
Yeah.
Discipline. And the most important thing, the last thing, just understanding that not everything is in your control. Just understand it. You did these 2 things, right? You're authentic to yourself. People laughed in your face. Yeah. You put in the work. You failed 100 times before you found one that worked. Most people don't survive this. Most people, right? Most people don't even get past this. They don't even survive it because they get hung up on one of these. Some people live their entire life trying to figure out actually who I am. I'm so busy trying to be someone else that I'm actually never figuring out who I am. You get stuck at phase 1. Some people get past phase one and they know who they are, but then they come to the delaying of gratification, which also means for an actor to not to say yes to those virtual dramas in order for them to work on leveling themselves up, to become worthy enough for the things that they truly are chasing.
Yeah.
But just like Odin and Thor, Odin took away Thor's hammer to teach Thor a lesson because of arrogance, ego. You've got an inflated view of yourself, and you cannot have an inflated view of yourself if you have discipline. As soon as you start becoming accountable of yourself and every single thing down to a checkbox level of accountability, there is no place for you to be inflated of an ego because you're constantly in the state of leveling yourself up. You're so busy, you don't have time to it. You don't have time. Where does ego come from? Ego comes from sitting down and observing other people with lesser things than you and patting yourself on the back, telling yourself that this is how amazing I am. But you wouldn't have the time to pat yourself on the back if you were every second productive. You wouldn't have time for it. You wouldn't have time to look at other people's lives when you're so productive, right? I've just never understood it, right? And finally, after doing all of that, if you got past that, it still didn't work out. Keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going, because it's not in your control, man. It's not in your control. Now, it doesn't matter what you believe in. Now, some people believe in God, some people don't, right?
Yeah.
I personally do.
But if you're doing this and you've got the dedication and you've already found yourself and this is your true calling for yourself to be happy anyway, then it doesn't matter what happens.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if you're committed to the journey, and I tell this as an example to a lot of people around me, one thing that I find absolutely mind-bogglingly refreshing about you and your brother and Jono is that you've stayed on course for the last 10 years. And that's saying a lot, because I don't know any other entrepreneurs that have stayed the course, except for myself with my own VC back then, which came crumbling down, crashing down, because my
Let's not tempt fate.
yeah. But anyways, my point is that I say that as a testament on the show today, that people should learn from you and your brother and Jono, because you don't see that anymore. How often do you find people like you who've stuck around for 10 years on a journey, bro? It's very rare. I've seen people after a year give up. No, a startup didn't work, it's failure.
Yeah.
Well, somebody told me, my mentor told me it's not worth pursuing. Oh, okay. Oh, my girlfriend doesn't like it. Oh, I gave up. Yeah, tons of things came your way. You name it. They threw the book in the sink at you. You didn't give up on Booked. That's saying a lot, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Now, to me, you're the perfect person to host From Trauma to Success, bro. Because you guys embody it, right? And I know for a fact, no matter what happens, the entire ecosystem that you guys are building will become a global empire one day. And not only would it become a global empire, it'll become a global empire that disrupts and solves a problem. And you know what that means, bro? It means that you're serving a purpose beyond just yourselves. And those who serve a purpose beyond themselves have something that others don't. They have the ability to see hope even in the darkest days, because they're not attached to just themselves. They're attached to something else. It's very, very difficult. It's not easy, man. It's very difficult. I've had dark days. You've had dark days. We've all had dark days.
So many. Yeah.
And it's at that time when you need to have the hope, man. You know, so thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing all of that. Listen, on the show, I read out a monologue.
You do?
And
How tacky.
and then we just reminisce on it and just
Reminisce
kind
on
of
it.
think about it. And
Like
see if
poetry.
see if there's anything that resonates. And I've got one for this particular episode.
Did you pick it up from Cereal Box?
I'm going to read it out. This was on 10 cereal boxes, and I brought them together.
So you brought them together?
And then I used AI to say,
Ladies and gentlemen, call Graham.
how can I make this wonderful?
Ladies and gentlemen, call Graham. Stitchers of Cereal Box wisdom. Right.
Now, because of you, we might actually just log this one out. Thanks, mate.
Oh, thanks, man. Sorry.
No, joking. I love it. It's brilliant. All right. So, look, this is obviously about personal branding, right? So,
Right.
Today, you're not a logo, not an image on a feed, not another cog in a system. You are energy. You are presence. You are a walking reputation. Someone people remember, respect, and want in the room. So why do so many still wait, craving approval, permission, promotion, waiting for someone else to say, you're ready? Instead of mastering the power of defining themselves for themselves. Personal branding isn't about being seen, it's about being remembered. It's not chasing likes or validation.
Beautiful, man.
It's creating gravity through value, discipline, and delivery. For those who have lost, failed, rebuilt, personal branding isn't strategy, it's survival itself. It's not fake it till you make it. It's live it while you create it. Become the name people trust, the voice they follow, the brand they invest in. Your personal brand isn't your image, it's your future.
Well said. Is that it?
That's it.
Did you write that?
I did write that, mate. Yeah.
That's epic, man. It's like the monologue to the next Avengers movie.
Wow.
Like, it's really awesome, man. It's really good. Do you want me to comment on it?
If you have something, please do.
No, it's
No,
really,
because-
really nice. I think it's good. It's very well written. It captures apt points really well. And the most important thing is it also feeds into one thing I just want to conclude the show with, right?
Yeah, please.
Your personal branding is just a gateway for you to level up. It's also a gateway for you to remove the negativity that's affecting you in daily life. Because it forces you to get out there. It forces you to push yourself out there to people to see, right? In the beginning, nobody's going to care. But sooner or later, once you understand the techniques of storytelling and the techniques of how you can be authentic while sharing a message, your first couple of posts will always be 0 likes, right? The reason why you're doing it should never be for the likes and for the ratings. The reason why you're doing it is because it's a means to the next step in the next evolution in your life. Understand that when you're getting onto IG or you're getting onto TikTok, whatever, understand that it is actually a means, a path to the next point. That's when you start to realize you're not too bothered about the fact that the first 5 posts got no likes. You don't care anymore. Yeah. What you're doing is creating content. You're becoming a creator, not a consumer. It's very important. Become a creator, not a consumer. Because the divine created us to create. Okay? Say that again, right? The divine created us to create. Yeah. We are creators ourselves, right? We can do immense things if we simply put our mind to it and wish to be true to who we are. And along that journey, you're not going to get recognition. There are going to be dark days. There are going to be quiet, boring days. There are going to be days where you don't want to get up and do what you got to do. But you have to act despite how you feel. And I think it's particularly very important for men, for us to understand that, right? You don't have the luxury of reacting to the day based on how you feel. You literally have to act irrespective of how you feel. Because in general, if you don't, what happens is that you allow your emotions to run unchecked. That's very, very dangerous for a man, right? Despite how much we've talked about emotions on this conversation, you need to be the one who masters them in order for you to channel them. Even the very concept of trauma to success and the concept of pain to purpose still requires a roadmap. Yeah. Right? The key is, even remembering who you are, authenticity still requires a roadmap. Very important to have an actual reverse engineered roadmap, a plan as to how you're going to get from A to Z, right? Which is actually surprisingly one of the biggest things that most people lack. They don't actually know how they're going to get there. They just talk about how they're going to get there, right? Yeah. I just want to conclude on that. One thing I do want to take away myself as well from the show is remind myself refreshingly as well, and probably in the audience for that whole process, is also that we have to maintain the will to act as the priority every day. And as cliche as it sounds, it's really true. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just need to start to eventually be perfect, right? It's really, really important that you actually start. It doesn't matter how pathetic it is. Just start, man. Probably won't work. You're probably going to pivot 15 times. Probably you're going to figure out that this didn't work, that did work. But it's the struggle that's part of that point where you eventually figure out what does, right? People are just really, really scared to do that work. They're not scared of actually themselves. They're not scared of any of this stuff. All this stuff is philosophical, in my opinion, drivel, right? Nobody really cares. People today, generationally, we're extremely superficial and quite self-involved. Call a spade a spade. Vast majority of people are very superficial and very self-involved, right? It's all me, me, me. They have absolutely no problem going out there and getting what they want if it means, to a certain extent, selling themselves as well, right? That's all crap. But the truth is that you're really just scared to put in the work. If you actually put in the work, you'll be surprised what you would accomplish. Be very, very surprised, right? Even in the arbitrary conceptual concepts that we spoke about, it takes hard work to make them a reality. It's not easy, right? Being a storyteller was not easy for those years. Exactly. It took a lot of work, creating systems, methodologies, all of that stuff. And a lot of people say, really? Storyteller? Really? Systems? They don't understand it, right? I was like, no. How do you actually coach a Fortune 500 CEO with no systems? Teach them something that's actually tangibly a takeaway. Not just, I'm going to sit there for 1 hour coaching you. No, it's not that, man. Anybody can do that, right? So I think it's just about being really, really true to yourself. And if you are, you'd be true to that level of work ethic. You'd want nothing but the best. In order for you to be that, you need to bring the best to the table, right? You don't bring the best to the table, but you want the best in everything. You want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. You want to be the next Elon Musk. You want to be all these guys, but you don't have even a quarter of their work ethic. You don't have any of their resistance and perseverance, right? You need to look at yourself in the mirror, man. Like I've been doing for these last couple of years. Been looking in the mirror and saying, listen, this is exactly where I'm lacking. It's time for me to accept that. And actually, in every passing day, ask myself if I've done something to move the needle, to shift it. Right? So I do want to talk about that because storytelling is very arbitrary, bro. We're a very arbitrary thing, right? People talk about the conceptuals of it, and it's a lot about motivation today that we've talked about, right? It could be inspiring, but it also has to be something that stems itself and entrenches itself in the will to act. And that could be something different for you today and for me different for me today. Just be accountable to who you are and remember why you're doing it. And actually, sooner or later, you'll figure it out. It'll actually fall into place. What that means to you is very different what it means to me. So yeah, man, just wanted to wrap up with that.
Fantastic. AJ,
Thank you.
appreciate you being here. Appreciate your time, your energy. I'm sure that everybody at home as well, listening or watching, really have taken something really solid from what you've put out across here. And appreciate you. I'm going to see you again soon.
Likewise. Thanks, you, Carl.
AJ.
Appreciate it. Always good to see you, man.
Hope you've all had a great time on the show. Talent Spotlight, Trauma to Success.